Ever feel like you're just drowning in information?
Oh, constantly.
Yeah, like you're bombarded with facts all the time, but you rarely get to really understand what's important. You want that shortcut, right? To be genuinely clued in, cut through the noise, grasp the deep stuff shaping our world.
Absolutely. That's the goal.
Well, that's exactly why you're here. This is the deep dive, your personal guide, let's say, to those aha moments and maybe some surprising facts, all without the usual overload.
Sounds good.
So today we're plunging into some pretty profound source material. We've got excerpts from Edmund Husserl's big one, The Crisis of European Sciences and Transcendental Phenomenology.
Yeah, a landmark text. Definitely foundational.
It really is. Not just any book. It digs into the very core of modern thought.
Right down to the foundations.
And our mission today, well, it's to unpack this deep crisis. Husserl saw not just a crisis in science, but like in human meaning itself.
Yeah, the meaning of it all.
And then explore his pretty radical proposal for how we might reground our knowledge, our sense of self.
It's quite a proposal.
Get ready for some surprising links between, the scientific method, your everyday life, maybe even your own inner experience.
It connects in unexpected ways.
Okay, so let's peel back the layers on these sources. Let's see what's truly at stake here.
Let's do it.
So when Husserl talks about a crisis of European humanity, he's not just pointing fingers at, say, politics or the economy.
No, it's not that superficial.
He's getting at something way deeper, a kind of spiritual breakdown, really, questioning the very meaning of man.
Exactly. It really goes to the core, What does it mean to be human now in this modern setup?
And what's really unsettling, I think, is his stark warning.
Oh, it's chilling. He literally talks about an imminent danger of the extinction of philosophy.
Wow.
And he ties that straight to the extinction of a Europe founded on the spirit of truth. It's huge.
So for him, modern philosophy wasn't just abstract thought experiments.
Not at all. He saw the whole history of it as a struggle for the meaning of man, a real battle of ideas with massive consequences.
And the context he was writing in, that's crucial, isn't it?
Absolutely critical. You have to remember, Husserl, as a Jew, was basically silenced in Germany.
Right.
He gave these incredibly powerful lectures in Vienna and Prague in 1935. I mean, think about that timing.
Yeah, Europe on the brink.
Exactly. Teetering on the edge of these unimaginable, fateful events. He wasn't just theorizing. He was living this crisis. He saw it unfolding.
So his work really confronts us, even today, with this, uncomfortable question. Does science actually make us wise? Is it really destined to create a genuine and contented humanity?
Right. And he almost scoffs at it.
Yeah, he practically says, who would still take such notions seriously today?
It's a direct hit, isn't it? A challenge to our modern faith that, tech and science alone will solve everything, bring us happiness.
And this historical perspective he takes, it's not just background detail for him.
No, not at all. He calls it a teleological historical reflection.
Okay, break that down a bit.
It just means looking back at history, but looking for its purpose, its underlying goal or direction. He thinks it's a necessary introduction to understanding his whole phenomenology project.
Why necessary?
Because it reveals the innermost motivation, the driving force behind these big philosophical and scientific shifts. He's basically saying, look, to really get why we think like we do now, you have to understand how we got here. The history isn't optional.
Okay, so that brings us to the roots. How did we end up in this crisis? This is where it gets really fascinating. Husserl points way back to the start of modern science.
Specifically to Galileo.
Right, Galileo. What was the big shift he initiated?
Well, Husserl calls it the mathematization of nature. Galileo's huge idea, his revolutionary move, was thinking that nature isn't just describable by math.
Okay.
But that nature is, in its essence, a mathematical universe.
Ah, right. So math becomes the reality.
Kind of. And this meant relying heavily on pure geometry. But also, and this is really profound, figuring out how to apply math indirectly to things we sense, colors, sounds, textures, what Husserl called plena, the fullness of sensory stuff.
So it wasn't just about measuring size and shape.
No, it was about bringing everything under the umbrella of mathematics, even if indirectly. And Galileo's physics, initially anyway, was a bold hypothesis, a kind of grand, what if we look at it this way?
A hypothesis.
Yeah, and Husserl notes kind of remarkably that the actual natural science throughout the centuries of its verification is a correspondingly remarkable sort of verification.
Meaning
it's unendingly hypothetical and unendingly verified. Science is always testing, always refining, never quite reaching a final absolute truth, but always confirming the power of that initial mathematical hypothesis.
Okay, so the formulas, the mathematical descriptions, they sort of took center stage for scientists.
Exactly. They became the main focus.
But was something lost in that shift? Something subtle?
Husserl argues yes, definitely. When geometry just became about numbers and calculation, what he calls the arithmetization of geometry, it actually led to an emptying of its meaning.
Emptying? How so?
Well, people stopped thinking so much about the actual shapes and spatial relationships, the intuitive geometric ideas, and focused more on manipulating the numbers, the symbols that represented them.
Ah, I see. The symbol replaces the thing.
Precisely. And this grew into what he calls universal formalization. Leibniz, for instance, dreamed of a mathesis universalis. Basically, a universal symbolic language, a formal logic carried out universally.
So the focus shifted from understanding the world through math to just doing the math.
Pretty much. Science became a peculiarly applied mathematics. And the big consequence, the hidden danger, was this surreptitious substitution of idealized nature for pre-scientifically intuited nature.
Okay, what does that mean in simple terms?
It means we started mistaking our mathematical models for the real world. We forgot that the elegant formulas were just a map, not the actual territory we experience every day.
Right, we started living in the map.
Exactly. And that had some huge, broader consequences for how we think about science itself.
Like what? What were those consequences?
Well, the positivistic concept of science, which is still pretty dominant today, Husserl sees it as a residual concept, kind of what's left over after shedding a lot.
What did it shed?
It basically dropped all the questions which had been considered under the concepts of metaphysics, all those big questions vaguely termed ultimate and highest.
Questions about meaning, purpose, values.
All of it.
Yeah.
By doing that, Husserl says it essentially decapitates philosophy. It reduces knowledge to just empirical facts, things you can measure.
If you can't measure, it doesn't count.
Right. Questions of reason beyond calculation, ultimate meaning, values that get sidelined as somehow illegitimate or meaningless for science.
And this scientific view, it also created a kind of split in how we view reality, didn't it? A dualism.
Oh, absolutely. A very peculiar split, as Husserl puts it. The world got divided into nature in itself, the objective physical stuff, and then this completely different mode of being, that which exists psychically. Mind versus matter, basically.
It's a classic problem.
Yeah. And then this physicalistic model, the way they studied nature, got applied even to the mind, to psychology. The soul started getting treated like just another physical object.
Like John Locke's idea.
Exactly. Locke's famous metaphor of the mind as a white paper, a tabula rasa. For him, psychic data sensations, ideas just come and go, somehow ordered like the events of bodies in nature. It's predictable, mechanistic.
So that's the naturalization of the psychic.
That's it. Treating our inner life, our consciousness, as just another part of the natural physical machinery governed by similar laws.
Okay, so if our minds are just like physical things and our thoughts are just like billiard balls bouncing around, what does that actually mean for knowledge? For how we know anything reliably?
Well, that's where the real problems started cropping up, especially with philosophers like David Hume.
Right, Hume, what was the issue?
The issue was, if this naturalistic psychology is true, then even the rational knowing activity of the philosophers and scientists themselves has to be explained by these same mechanistic psychological laws.
Oh, right. So reason itself becomes just a psychological process.
Exactly. And that leads straight to what Husserl calls paradoxical skepticism. You see it emerging with Berkeley, but Hume takes it all the way.
How so?
Hume basically argued that all our fundamental ways of understanding the world, objective categories like, say, mathematical concepts, the idea that objects persist over time, even our sense of self, and crucially, cause and effect, all of these are ultimately fictions.
Fictions? Seriously?
Yeah, useful fictions, maybe, but fictions nonetheless. For Hume, these concepts aren't reflecting deep reality. They're just things our minds cook up. They're explained perfectly well psychologically through the immanent lawfulness of the associations and the relations between ideas.
So it's just mental habits. Like, we see B follow A enough times and our brain just creates the idea of causality.
That's the core of it. It's just how our minds work, association of ideas. And this, Husserl says, led to Hume's famous bankruptcy of philosophy and science.
Bankruptcy how?
Because on one hand, science was incredibly successful, right? Predicting things, building technology.
Yeah, undeniably.
But on the other hand, its very philosophical foundation, our ability to know anything for certain, the validity of reason itself seemed to just crumble into psychological habits and fictions. A huge paradox.
Okay, so Hume drops this bombshell, this radical skepticism, and that famously roused Kant from his dogmatic slumbers, as Kant himself put it.
That's the story, yeah. Kant read Hume and realized philosophy was in deep trouble.
So how did Kant try to fix this? How did he respond to Hume's challenge?
Kant's response was brilliant, really. He proposed a new sort of transcendental subjectivism.
Transcendental subjectivism.
Yeah.
Okay, what does that mean?
He argued that the world we experience, the world that intuitively appears to us, isn't just passively received from out there. Instead, it must already be shaped or constructed by the inherent structures of our own minds, what he called the faculties of pure intuition and pure reason.
So our minds aren't blank slates. They actively organize reality.
Exactly. Things like space, time, causality for Kant, these aren't features of the world in itself, but the necessary frameworks our mind uses to make sense of any possible experience. The whole world of science, then, is a subjective construct of our intellect.
That sounds like a big step away from Hume.
It was. But Husserl, while respecting Kant, still thought Kant remained naive.
Naive. Kant sounds pretty sophisticated.
Husserl's critique was that Kant never permitted himself to enter the vast depths of the Cartesian fundamental investigation, meaning Kant didn't investigate consciousness itself deeply enough.
He didn't go back to the.
Not in the radical way Husserl thought was necessary. So Kant missed, according to Husserl, the true meaning of the accomplishments of positive science, that these accomplishments have a deeper, transcendental subjective meaning, rooted in how consciousness actively constitutes or builds up our experience of reality. Kant saw the mind-shaping experience, but Husserl wanted to investigate that shaping process itself much more directly.
Okay, so if Kant didn't dig deep enough, what was this deeply concealed subjective ground that Husserl was trying to uncover? What did Kant miss?
He missed what Husserl famously called the Lifeworld, the Lebenswelt.
The Lifeworld. Okay, what is that exactly?
Think of it as the world as we actually live it. Before we start theorizing or doing science, it's the surrounding world of life taken for granted as valid.
So just everyday reality, the ground under my feet, the room I'm in, the people I interact with.
Precisely. The pre-scientific, pre-theoretical world we just navigate instinctively. It's prior to all theory. And Husserl says this basic level of experience constitutes a vast realm of subjective phenomena which have remained anonymous. We just haven't paid proper attention to it philosophically.
Why not?
Because science and philosophy got obsessed with the objective, measurable world and sort of forgot the foundation it all rests on. This pre-theoretical life is the bedrock, the universal field of all actual and possible praxis, all our doing and acting. It's the fundamental ground of all objective science.
So science emerges from the life world.
Yes. And the life world itself is an infinity of ever new phenomena. If you actually start exploring it carefully, Husserl says, it opens up questions of being in a new and immediately highly enigmatic dimension. It's richer and stranger than our scientific models often assume.
Right. It's the world before we slap the mathematical grid onto it.
Exactly.
So this sounds like it requires a whole different way of doing philosophy, a different method, not just analyzing concepts, but something else.
Totally different. A new kind of science, in a broader sense. Husserl's method demands what he calls a universal epoch.
Epic. Fancy word.
Yeah, it just means suspension or bracketing. He's saying we need to consciously suspend judgment about all our ingrained objective scientific opinions, all our assumptions about whether the world really exists independently of us, put them in brackets, set them aside.
Why? To what end?
This is the famous transcendental reduction. It's a new way of looking at things, different from Descartes' initial doubt. It's not just a one-off thought experiment. It's supposed to become a habitual attitude.
A whole new way of being, almost.
Husserl compares it at the start to a religious conversion, a complete personal transformation. It requires what he calls philosophical solitude, stepping back from assumptions. For him, this is a fundamental methodical requirement for a truly radical philosophy. You have to clear the decks to see what's really there in experience itself.
Okay, sounds intense. But what do you gain from doing this? What kinds of insights pop out when you perform this transcendental reduction?
What you discover, Husserl says, is the universal a priori of correlation.
Correlation between what?
Between any object we experience and the specific way it is given to our consciousness, its manner of givenness.
Can you give an example?
Sure. Think of a tree. An actual physical tree in the world can burn up, turn to ash, cease to exist, right?
Right.
But the perceived tree, the tree as you are consciously experiencing it right now as such, cannot burn up. Husserl says it's an absurdity to even suggest it.
Why is it absurd?
Because the perceived tree isn't a physical thing. It's a moment, an aspect, belonging to your ego subject's own essence. It's part of the structure of your conscious experience of the tree.
Ah, okay. So the experience and the object are tied together in consciousness.
Indivisibly. And through this reduction, the objective world itself, including those tricky paradoxical interrelationships between the objective world of science and the life world we live in, reveals itself not as something simply out there, but as a constituted accomplishment of our consciousness.
Constituted accomplishment, meaning our consciousness actively builds it, puts it together.
In a way, yes. It doesn't mean we create the world out of nothing, like magic. But it means the way the world appears to us, the way it has meaning for us, is actively shaped and structured by the intentional acts of our consciousness. Consciousness isn't just a passive mirror. It's an active participant in shaping reality as experienced.
Wow, okay. That's a massive shift in perspective. How does this radically new approach affect psychology? Because that was such a problem area for Hume and others, right?
Huge implications. Husserl argues that the fateful separation of transcendental philosophy and psychology, this idea that you can study the mind scientifically without dealing with these deeper philosophical questions about consciousness, simply must be overcome.
Why? What was wrong with psychology trying to be like a natural science?
Because by treating the soul or mind as if it were just another physical body or mechanism, traditional psychology denied itself the possibility of truly intentional analysis.
Intentional analysis. Meaning?
Analysis of how consciousness is always about something, how it intends or points towards objects, meanings, values. Psychology got stuck in what Husserl called data sensationalism, like Locke's white paper, getting passively filled with sense data.
Right, just inputs and outputs.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it remained blind to intentional being in, or more simply, having something in mind. It missed the core feature of consciousness. Its directedness, its meaning-making activity.
So what's Husserl's alternative for psychology?
He called for a true descriptive psychology, one that would perform its own kind of universal epic, bracketing out the physicalist assumptions to get at the pure soul, the structure of conscious experience itself.
And what would that reveal?
It would reveal the intentional nexus, the whole network of how consciousness connects with the world, how meanings are formed, revealing what is purely, essentially proper to persons as such. It's about understanding you, the conscious subject, the meaning maker, not just a collection of data points.
It really feels like we've circled back to history again, but in a very specific way. It's not just about dates and events.
Absolutely. Husserl keeps coming back to him. He insists again that the history of modern philosophy is this struggle for the meaning of man.
And understanding that history is key.
Essential. He says a critical understanding of the total unity of history is crucial for our own self-understanding now. That teleological historical reflection we talked about earlier, it isn't just some academic exercise, it's the necessary entry point into doing genuine philosophy today.
And that applies even to something seemingly abstract like geometry.
Yes. He uses the example of understanding the origin of geometry, not just finding out who invented it when, but undertaking an inquiry back into the most original sense in which geometric ideas arose in human experience.
What does that show us?
It reveals how something like ideal objectivity, the seemingly timeless truth of a mathematical theorem, is actually grounded in human practices, in our linguistic living body, how we use language, gesture, interact with the world, and how these contribute to shared understanding across time.
So even abstract truths have a history rooted in our lived experience.
That's the idea. Husserl's ultimate goal here is to uncover the historical a priori, the underlying absolute supertemporal validity that makes knowledge and shared understanding possible, even amidst the undeniable relativity of different historical worldviews and perspectives. He's searching for the constant structure within the historical flow.
Okay, so wrapping this up, we've journeyed through Husserl's really deep critique of where modern science and philosophy ended up.
This crisis of reason leading to a kind of loss of meaning.
Yeah, and then we saw how his Transcendental Phenomenology offers this, well, pretty radical path back, a way to reground our knowledge, not in abstract formulas, but in that often overlooked life world.
The world of our immediate lived experience, the foundation we forgot.
Right, and Husserl's challenge to us, reading him now, it feels incredibly potent.
Oh, it is. He warns that the greatest danger is weariness, just giving up on the hard questions. He says the only way out of this deep crisis of European existence is nothing less than a rebirth of Europe from the spirit of philosophy. And it requires a heroism of reason that overcomes naturalism once and for all.
Heroism of reason, that's strong language.
It is. He sees it as a profound transformation, personal and societal, because, as he puts it quite starkly, the spirit alone is immortal. He's calling for a reinvestment in meaning, in reason, in the human spirit.
So the big takeaway for you listening to this, by digging into these deep historical and philosophical roots of how we know what we know, it's not just about getting smarter, gaining intellectual points. It seems like it's about gaining a really profound self-understanding.
And absolutely. Recovering a kind of faith, maybe in yourself, and the possibility of meaning in your own existence, against that backdrop of scientific reductionism.
Yeah. And Husserl has this line. He states that reason is precisely that which man qua man in his innermost being is aiming for, that which alone can satisfy him, make him blessed.
A powerful claim.
It really is. So maybe the thought to leave you with after this deep dive today is, what does it actually mean for you to engage in this struggle for truth, as Husserl puts it? And how might taking that struggle seriously shape your own life, your own understanding of the complex world swirling around you?
Something deep to chew on.